And I understand a lot of us have maybe different ideas, interpretations of what the soul might really be. But for me, the way I look at it now is that this is, we are but one soul, the soul of God. But as these individual souls having soul journeys that are the experience of God, God experiences through us as we experience God. That's all completely integrated. So, in a way, it's kind of funny to say it like this, but in a way, on this sort of journey, this part of this aspect, this part of God is learning as we learn, but at the same time, of course, God is all knowing because ultimately God is the experience of the all of everything. Hello, my name is Rex. I had a near-death experience in 2011 that pretty much completely transformed me and my entire life. Currently, I am a composer, music composer. I'm a music producer. I'm an online merchandiser. I do presentations. I'm an author. I have a book out called My Experiment with Gravity, which is based on my near-death experience, and it's also basically like an autobiographical self-help book. I'm a martial arts instructor. DJ. I guess it's a lot of things that I do, and I'm in the process of writing a second book, which is not too far from being ready for editing. But yes, this whole life since the near-death experience is a whole lot different than it was before, and the person that went into the near-death experience and came out on the other end is also quite a bit different. There's a lot about me, I guess. There's certain elements, I say a lot, but there's certain elements that I guess it carried over from before the near-death experience and after. But I definitely came back a whole lot different, right on down to like my very thought patterns, the way I feel, my sensitivities, my intuition, my empathy. Not to say I didn't have all of that before, but it has grown exponentially since. And it's been some pretty incredible transformations and also some incredible visions that I've received from it. And my connection to source, I mean, I guess I had a certain amount of spirituality before the near-death experience. I wouldn't say I wasn't, of course, early on in my life, I wasn't probably terribly spiritual, but I was becoming more spiritual. And since the NDE, I've become, I mean, it's been my whole life. And my spirituality is both, I guess you could say, philosophical, but it's also scientific at the same time, largely as a result of my visions. Even the way that I write and produce music is all as a result of these visions and the way I'm able to visualize music and tap into source to draw out the creation of this music. This is something I never had before. I've DJ'd my entire life, but I never had the musical side of it before. In fact, I even discovered writing and producing music quite by accident, which I'll get into here shortly. I'm guessing that the thing that's paramount on most people's minds is, what happened, and um, how did the near-death experience happen? What did I experience while I was in the, I guess you could call it the near-death state? So the basic story is this. I fell out of a tree. I mean, I know I guess we can kind of laugh about it now, but because I mean, I know it sounds funny, and at the time that I was climbing, I mean, it was in 2011, and I'm 58 now, so I was 44 when it happened. So people oftentimes will ask, what the heck was a 44-year-old man doing up in a tree? And the short answer to that is that climbing has always been part of my life. I used to, I live in Colorado. I'm in Denver, and the mountains are close by, so there's a lot of mountain climbing and a lot of rock climbing that I have done over the years. And then when I'm in town, I still like to climb, and trees are very accessible, so I used to climb trees. And this particular tree I was in, I've climbed, dozens upon dozens of times, and this particular day, for whatever reason, branches let go. One branch broke underneath me, and I went to grab a second branch to try to keep myself from falling. And I went straight down onto a concrete bike path. The police report, and the first responder reports list the height at 26 feet. No joke. And it also is listed in the police report and my hospital records that I landed head first. So yes, I hit a concrete bike path head first from 26 feet. Um, the quote from Monty Python, I got better. Um, but yeah, I had massive bleeding on the brain. I was in a coma for 5 days. I broke 20 bones. I was in the hospital for a month. Let's see. Yeah, and it took about 2 years. I'm still going through my share of medical issues from it, but the initial healing process, I guess the basic healing process took about 2 years because I went through multiple surgeries and hours upon hours of very painful therapy to get back to where I had some level of functionality, both physically and mentally. I did not, when I came out of the coma, I didn't come out of it like, oh, hey, where am I? Nice to be back. I mean, it took my brain a little while to come back online. And anybody that saw me when I was in the hospital will tell you that I was definitely not all there. Um, but getting into the actual near-death state, what happened, I understand, medically speaking, that especially over the first couple of days after I was admitted to the hospital, I apparently crashed multiple different times. I'm not sure quite how many times, but I get the feeling it didn't, I don't, the actual number was not listed in any of my reports, but talking to my doctors, even some that I still see now, that I crashed a number of times, and apparently on a couple of those crashes, they thought they lost me. They thought I was gone, and the doctors, that is, and somehow I would just keep coming back. So there's a thought that apparently that wasn't my time, and I still had things to do. And my hope now, of course, is that by the time I do take my last breath, that I can feel like I really did everything that I came here to do. For the first time in my life, I came back feeling like I have a real destiny to fulfill. Um, a lot of things, I'm still waiting on a lot of things, but I do the work. I've been working hard as much as I can. I mean, I get migraines and I'm very tired a lot of the times. I don't sleep well a lot of the times as a result of the traumatic brain injury. But when I feel good, I'm working. I'm not a couch potato type of person. Like I said, I've been training in martial arts pretty much my whole adult life, and I'm just not somebody who likes to sit around. When I feel well, I like to work. I like to get things done, and I have goals. Like I say, I feel like I have a destiny here, and part of that destiny involves doing something meaningful for the world, doing something meaningful with my life that impacts lives in positive ways. I have a lot of ideas and then thoughts and my story that I hope can impact others and help them think about their situation. I mean, even think about, their lives and their life journeys and ways they can be their best self and have their best life. And in the process, hopefully offer food for thought about what really is the nature of existence, food for thought about what God might really be and how, we may relate and connect. Because for me, in my experience, um, it's all integrated. It's all, on the one hand, I know we have this idea, this experience of separation, and I don't want to go so far as to call it an illusion. It's all part of the experience, but at the same time, it's all unified in one. I mean, it's all completely integrated. And in my experience, I did not experience a separation from God. I experienced a complete oneness with God. And getting into um, the visionary aspect of it, in simple, I mean, I don't want to take a lot of time because I mean, we've got time to talk here, but I also know we don't have necessarily a lot of time because I can literally talk about this for hours. While in this space, I'll put it to you like this. Imagine, and I'll say it like this because I feel like this is the core source of all of us. This isn't like I'm unique to this experience. This is a part of what we all are and the part of the nature of creation itself. But what I experienced was this. It's like imagine all of space, the expanse of the universe, whatever it may really be, all at once. And imagine all of time, past, present, and future, all at once. Imagine potential reality, potential experience, parallel universes and multiple realities all at once. And with that, imagine like infinite dimensions, the infinity of experience, the infinity of creation all at once. And in this space, I was not experiencing love as we may think of it, because I was love. And here, I wasn't simply alive. I did not necessarily feel the experience of life because I was life itself, the essence of life itself. And here, I wasn't a collection of thoughts. I wasn't simply mind unto itself. I wasn't experiencing it because I was the mind, the thought, the imagination that gives rise to creation itself all at once. All of this. I can't say how long or how short the experience lasted. In a way, it felt like a moment, but in that moment was was eternity, was the all of everything, from the darkest of the dark to the lightest of the light and everything in between, all at once. But the big takeaway is that through it all was the most pure love. I mean, I was love as I just expressed, but it wasn't just that, but the, how natural, how authentic, on the one hand, how delicate, but on the other, how profound and powerful this love is. I don't want to say was, I don't want to say past tense or even, present or future tense, because again, it's all encompassing, it's all embodying all at once. And this is where I was. And sometimes people will ask me, well, did you experience loved ones that have passed? Did you experience angels? Or did you experience, like, in a way, no, but in a way, yes, because like I say, I experienced the all of everything all at once, and this included all of that. I felt all of it. I felt all of my own being. I felt my mom who passed away in 1988. I mean, that was the essence of, I feel like, if I dare say it like this, I feel like I was like God, God's self for a moment. And that to help me to realize that this really is the essence of who and what we all are. And I understand a lot of us have maybe different ideas, interpretations of what the soul might really be. But for me, the way I look at it now is that this is, we are but one soul, the soul of God, but as these individual souls having soul journeys that are the experience of God. God experiences through us as we experience God. That's all completely integrated. So in a way, it's kind of funny to say it like this, but in a way, on this sort of journey, this part of this aspect, this part of God is learning as we learn, but at the same time, of course, God is all knowing because ultimately God is the experience of the all of everything. But we are in the process throughout the course of our lives, be it through multiple lifetimes in a soul journey or a single lifetime, we are God experiencing God's self is part of the growth in the process of God learning. Because in order for God to have all of these experiences, God must also experience it along with us. But in the grand, I know this is kind of seems contradictory, but it also depends on the perspective and how you look at it. So in a linear context of our lives, you know, there is a growth process taking place for all that is. But in the grand scheme of things, when you kind of step back and look at it as a field of potential reality, potential experience and possibilities and probabilities, that's already said and done. So in that context, God is all knowing and is the experience of all and is all the all of everything. And I feel like there is even no separation between what we might consider to be good and evil. There are different sides of the same coin in a context of that it's all part of that same reality. And I feel like it comes down to the relationship with love. Even people that profess to be atheist or agnostic love somebody. They love something in their lives. There's something that they profoundly and deeply love, be it their partner, be it their brothers and sisters or parents, their doggies and kitties and horsies and so on and so on. But everybody has a relationship with love. And if you think about our lives, love can be painful. Love can strip you down to the core. It can be I mean, if I may say it like this, it can be a brutal, profoundly hurtful experience. And in some people's cases, they don't rebound from major heartbreaks and major traumas that involve love. And I can see where, if that's the case, and somebody is not working to heal, to process through whatever that experience is, where they can end up being in a hateful, spiteful place. They could end up in a very, very dark place as a result, and maybe even do so through an entire lifetime because sometimes those pains for some people are just not pains that people can sometimes process through and get over, and they may carry it with them through an entire lifetime and maybe even multiple lifetimes. Whereas on the other side of it, love is the most powerful force in the universe. Love can heal all things. All things are possible through love, and love is that force that can lift us up to be our best self, to be fully contented, absolutely fulfilled, and one and connected. And it's through love that we see our connection to each other, to the earth, to the universe, to God, to source, to the angels. So in that context, I have, and it's interesting because I have relationships. I mean, it's interesting. I didn't necessarily specifically see angels with my NDE or say my deceased mother, because again, she's probably, to this day, perhaps the person I was the closest to, and certainly among the closest for sure. She was such a profound part of my life and such a beautiful, beautiful soul. But the thing is that since the NDE, I'm still there. I may be physically in my body in this life and where I'm here, doing this podcast and, and I'm living moment to moment with everybody else, but at the same time, I'm still in that near that space of the all of everything all at once. And as a result, I now have relationships, even with my mother and other deceased loved ones. I have relationships with angel and light beings and spirit beings, and relationships with all types of different kinds of beings. And even in some cases, because love knows no bounds, I'll even say it like this: I even have relationships with certain dark beings, if you will, because love seeks to reach out to everything and everyone. And love seeks to bring everybody home, everything home. One thing I personally got out of my NDE is that everything is born of light and love. Everything, all beings, everything. And and ultimately everything, which involves you, me, and even I may say it like this. I know some may disagree with this, but I feel this, with every fiber of my being and my soul, that even the devil's going to come home one day, you know, and here's a thought. Here's just an idea. You know how in religious lore that Lucifer basically means light bringer? And it seems like such a contradiction in terms of things. Lucifer, the light bringer, that doesn't make sense. Well, maybe that's just because Lucifer in biblical lore was the right hand angel, to God, and the one that at the one point was the closest to God, with respect to, what is written in that lore. So in a way, metaphorically speaking, we'll just take it in a metaphorical context here with respect to karma, is that Lucifer was the first to leave home. Lucifer was the first to, I guess, go to hell, if you will, be cast to hell, be it, his choice, God's choice, whatever the case may be, there's a free will involved, even with such beings. And ultimately, Lucifer made whatever choices Lucifer made and becoming the being that he became as a result of what happened, again, based on the lore with God in heaven. But at the same time, so Lucifer would have been the first one to leave home. And ultimately, there are other angels, other beings that followed Lucifer to hell, and hence the creation of the original duality. That of this idea of good versus evil, the idea of God and the devil. And ultimately, because all things are born of light, and because of that, all things will eventually come home to light, I feel like Lucifer, karmically speaking, will be the last to return home. Lucifer was the first to leave. Lucifer will be the last to come home. And when Lucifer comes home, there will be no more dark, only light, which is why I feel like Lucifer is the light bringer. And that gets us into a whole nother series of questions and thoughts and ideas about what that all can mean, and 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 ultimately, I mean, how in terms of talking about is that the end and what happens after that. But that's another long conversation that we probably don't have time to get into right now. But these are some of the ideas and visions that I've had since my near-death experience, and ultimately too, gosh, I mean, like getting into some scientific concepts like quantum theory and cosmology, astronomy. I have a lot of ideas about that now too that I didn't have before. And because I'm a near-death experiencer and because I'm not a scientist, my ideas are both scientific and spiritual at the same time. And ultimately, I'd love to work with scientists on some of these ideas and let them do the work necessary to help create these ideas and turn them into actual working scientific theories. I know I'm not technically qualified to do that, so it'd be great to work with scientists that are open to these ideas, um, that may explain a lot of things about the nature of our existence, including dark energy and the nature of what gravity might really be, because I think gravity really is at the heart and soul of all of this. And in my view, gravity is kind of like the glue that holds it all together, from the most fundamental quantum states all the way out to perspective multiverse. To me, if you're into quantum theory, you've probably heard of the theory of everything, and I won't dive into all the details on it, but the theory of everything is basically physicists' attempt at creating an equation that unites the strong and weak nuclear forces, electromagnetism, and gravity into a single equation, not unlike Einstein's E equals mc squared. And I understand physicists are having a very difficult time trying to unite gravity with the other three forces. The other three forces seem to go together perfectly, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of issue with how those forces go together. But gravity, this doesn't seem to work, and that's one of the biggest, challenges in quantum physics. Um, and in my view, gravity doesn't work there because it doesn't fit there. I feel like gravity is fundamental to a perspective of multi-universal existence. And if that's the case, we're going into something that goes beyond our universe, our own singular universal existence. It's hard to imagine maybe something even more fundamental than our universe. But if this perspective multiverse really does exist, and I feel like it does, which gets back to my point of my near-death experience, getting into multiple realities and parallel universes. And that's where this comes from, is that gravity is fundamental to a multi-universal existence. Imagine for a moment a kaleidoscope. Now, we've all seen kaleidoscopes. Now, imagine this kaleidoscope, but with no center. And imagine you're looking at this kaleidoscope, and you know how kaleidoscopes are. There's movement all over the place. You've got areas where things are compressing and closing in on themselves, and then pulling back out and expanding outside of themselves, and then so much so that they just fuse into other things that are fusing and growing together. And it's this nonstop process of energetic movement of these processes. If you want to take it in a multi-universal context, in a three-dimensional example of a kaleidoscope, it's a constant movement of everything expanding and contracting and infusing and separating, and just this combinations of energies and what's the word I'm looking for here? Just I don't know, but again, the integration of these energies all working together, creating all these amazing facets of movement. And if our universe, imagine this vast, infinite kaleidoscope, and our universe is a little segment over here in this vast multi-universal kaleidoscope, and we're in that particular segment of the kaleidoscope that's expanding, it would explain why the universe is expanding, and not just expanding, but expanding at an ever-increasing rate, which many physicists believe is taking place. And so there's a lot of speculation as to how in the world could that be happening, because it would make a lot more sense if the universe were expanding at a slower, at a slowing rate, and then maybe at some point it's going to fall back in on itself. Which, if you're thinking about the kaleidoscopic potential, there's certainly one possibility, and it's possible maybe our universe is expanded and contracted multiple times, but maybe it's in a phase and a part of that kaleidoscope that's expanding on out right now, and it's doing so at an ever increasing rate as it begins to infuse with other universal possibilities. So that's a very, very simplified example of or an expression of my idea of why I feel like gravity is fundamental to a multi-universal existence. And that doesn't even get into the unified field of potential reality of going from the point where reality is just potential to crossing over to a level of the most fundamental of particles, now beginning to create what we view as the experience, things that we can observe, at least on some level and in some way. And this is again another long thing to explain, but very simply, I'd be like gravity is inherent even on these levels. You hear about theories on quantum gravity, and I feel like this may potentially fit into some of those theories. They're very much fringe theories for the most part, but I feel like gravity in all of its subtlety and intricacy is integral to the manifestation of the most fundamental particles of our existence, getting into quarks and bosons and so on, which evolves into, of course, protons, electrons, etc., but getting into also atomic structures and eventually molecular structures on up to what we view as our experiential reality. And I feel like gravity, like I say, is that sort of the glue that holds it all together. In a manner of speaking, gravity, I feel like, has some very liquid type qualities to it. So in a way, it's almost like we're underwater, but the water is actually gravity. But this water is not like the ocean where you've got you've got the top of the ocean here and the bottom of the ocean here, but the ocean is kind of like space. And gravity is, and I'm really oversimplifying this, but gravity is kind of like this vast infinite ocean that is what allows everything to work, everything to be and connect, and the chemical processes to work, ultimately growing up into becoming this reality that we all experience.
Thank you so much for sharing. I can tell that you're super passionate about these things. I think that when we have experiences, we start to get exposed to spiritual information, scientific information, and we can really run with it and, design this whole belief system around it. I'm wondering if maybe you can share a little bit about how you started telling people about your experience. Was your family receptive to it? Your friends? Like, were you able to share about this stuff openly, especially when you started to come into the scientific part of the spiritual experience as well?
Um, Thankfully, yes. My family, my friends have been very supportive of all of this, and more often than not, I find that a lot of my friends, including my friends that are again agnostic or atheist, have been very fascinated by my perception of consciousness, the nature of existence, and everything that I've been describing here. So I know a lot of people don't get that support, and I've got friends that are near-death experiences that have gone through very difficult times, and oftentimes have waited years before they even admitted that they experienced something, beyond what we might consider, our this corporeal reality. Thankfully, I have a lot of friends that have been supportive about this, and I've even had, like I say, some friends of mine that are atheists and agnostic that are open to talking to me about this and even receiving of this and allowing for this to be potential reality because a lot of it seemed to make sense to them. It seemed to resonate with them. And maybe some of those folks are reluctant to use the word God if they don't want to believe in God and they don't want to really believe in religion. And that's fine. I respect them for their beliefs and no judgments on my part. I'm happy to talk to anybody about this. But thankfully, a lot of people have been very supportive and very receptive and very open to hearing what I have to say and even at least giving consideration to it, even if they disagree with me.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that. I feel like that's a rarity. I'm happy that that has been your experience. Can you share about, I know that you mentioned like the love of your mother and your spiritual experience. Have you had after death communication with her since or any other sort of communication with spirit guides or feeling that energy again that you felt in your near death experience?
Um, I have, since the near-death experience, I have relationships with my mother, with many of the people that have passed. I have relationships with angel beings. Even I've even described, like I say, I sure love wherever I can, and even if it's a dark being that comes to me, but my boundary is that it's got to be done in love, and because I believe love is a part of everything, I will share love with all that which I feel like needs to feel that love. So I do. I have, and it's one of those things where I can just reach out and make that connection. I feel like the spirit world, if you will. Um, they're not limited and bound the way we are here. They're not limited by only being able to say communicate with just one person at a time. So if I'm communicating with an angel, and I'll pick one that most people know, like the Archangel Michael, for example, um, I feel like as angels, if I'm communicating with Michael, it's not like I'm monopolizing his time and his energy to where he can't communicate with somebody else at the same time. Angels can exist in that state of what quantum theory refers to as superposition. I mean, it's all entangled on that level as well, where everything is connected to everything, and an angel being can be in multiple spaces at the same time because space-time is just not the same in the spirit realm as it is here. There's no linear movement there. It's all, to me, it's all like in a space of just possibility and probability, and you can move in that field anywhere you want to and collapse down at any particular moment, anytime that you want to. And as an angel being, I believe that they can communicate and experience with multiple people at the same time, and they're not relegated to just one person at the same time. So for me, it's just a matter of just going into that space from within Like I say, it's just inherently a part of me now. There's not even any effort. If anything, I have a difficult time staying grounded here more than, it's more than being there, because it's actually somehow easier for me to be there than it is here sometimes. So I have a lot of relationships with a great many beings. And one example of that is is a Native American chief named Chief Black Kettle, who I believe was an Arapaho Indian. And forgive me if I'm wrong about that. If he's not Arapaho, he's a Lakota Sioux, but I think he was Arapaho. But he was killed in what's referred to as the Sand Creek Massacre here in Colorado that took place back in the 1800s. It was, one of the big stains on American history for sure. But he was a beautiful person in his life, and a beautiful soul, no, in his being that he is now. So I may have communications with him. I even have communications with, say, Jesus Christ. But I also reach out to beings like Siddhartha, Krishna, Kuan Yin. I feel like I have relationships with a great number of these beings. And because my first religious or spiritual experience was before the NDE, I did reach out to Jesus Christ. I don't consider myself Christian. I don't consider myself religious, but I do have relationships with these beings, and I do have a relationship with Jesus Christ. And I feel like it is, and this is not just true for me. I think it's just true for everybody. We just sometimes have to learn how to kind of get out of our own way to be able to just open up and allow these beings or allow for us to see and feel the connection that's already there. It's more a matter of not having to make the connections, as it is a matter of just realizing that connection is already there and allowing for it. And again, it probably don't have the time to get into all the ways we can do that, but certainly meditation is one. Learning how to quiet the insides. I think we've heard people talk about this, and just being able to just get into that peaceful, loving, pure loving space from within, and just being able to open up and listen, and be able to be heard and be able to hear at the same time. And I'll say this too, especially, during those times when, especially when a loved one has just passed, there's a lot of grieving, of course, and that's a natural part of that process. And just because I have these relationships, including with my mom, doesn't mean I don't still grieve when somebody I love passes away. That's part of the human experience, I think, of the process of dying. And I believe that's one of the ways that we connect with them as a spirit being. And it's also one of the ways we honor their life and honor what they meant to us by going through this grieving process. So I'm going to suggest this. So if you're going through such a process and you're reminiscing and thinking about them, remembering the beautiful times, remembering what it was like to hug them, to hold them, to talk to them, to hear them, even their scent. And maybe there's a song that comes on, or maybe you're even at the funeral, at a wake, or maybe you're talking to people and reminiscing with friends and loved ones about this person's life and what they meant to you and to those that they touched. And in that moment, you're really feeling them, like they're really with you in that moment. I'm going to suggest that they really are. If you're feeling that, then that's because they truly, absolutely are with you in that moment. And even if maybe you didn't get to say what you wanted to say to them before they passed, say it to them right then, because they'll take it all in. They'll hear it, they'll feel it, they'll be right there with you. And I believe that's real. I mean, that's just part of the nature of this existence, and part of the connection, the inherent connection of the all of everything, from the physical to the spirit. So if you feel like they're with you, even if it's years later, again, that certain song comes on streaming or the radio or something, and it just takes you back to that space of being with them, and you're hearing them, and and what it's like to even hug and hold them and what have you, then just know that they really are. Just know that they're with you, and take those times to reach out, connect with them, experience with them. And if it brings you to tears, and let the tears flow. If it brings you to laughter, then laugh and let it out, let it go. I think that's one of the many ways that we can honor those people that have passed and what they've meant to us and the difference they made in our lives. But at the same time, just I guess, know that we're connected, and feel that connection and reinforce that connection, because anytime you want to reach out to someone in the spirit realm, and you don't have to be a medium to do this. Any one of us can do this. It's a part of all of us all the time. So just believe that. If you feel them, know that they're with you.
Thanks, Rex. I really enjoyed this conversation. I have to say that you got into so much of the science, and I haven't been able to hold space with someone who has shared their experience in a really scientific way as well. So thank you for that, because I know that our listeners love that. Obviously, we're academic research place, so I really enjoyed listening to the science aspect, and I also really enjoyed hearing how much it excites you to
Well,
talk
thank
about
you.
that. Yeah. I
Can
just
we, before we go, can we talk about my musical discovery? Is that possible?
absolutely please. Yeah, I was just gonna ask if there's anything else that you'd like to share to feel more complete as we start to wrap up. So please go ahead and share.
I mean, there's so many things. I mean, and I know we have a limited amount of time here, but there, gosh, there's just so many things I would just really love to share with your audience and just share with people. Part of what I'm doing here, again, I want to be able to connect and share it, and hopefully some part of my experience can help you with some part of yours. But I want to share with you my music story. Um, and I understand there's a couple of near-death experiences that have similar stories, which I absolutely love. However, for me personally, I discovered quite by accident that I can write and produce music. Uh, my visual acuity there's a lot of things that I can't do now that I could do before. But one thing that really expanded since my near-death experience is my visual acuity. I can visualize things like crazy, which is, the whole thing about gravity I was talking about. It's all visions. And my music, I write and produce music, and it's all done through visions. It's all done through tapping into source consciousness. Um, I've been a DJ my whole life, but mixing music and making people dance is not the same as writing a piece of music. I don't have any training in writing music. I've never written a piece of music before, nor did I ever imagine I would ever write a piece of music, let alone being able to mix and master it as well, because I'm not an engineer and I have no training to that effect either. In 2018, this happened a number of years after the NDE. My NDE, like I said, happened in 2011, but in 2018, I was actually home alone over Thanksgiving weekend that year, and I just acquired a piece of software called Ableton. It's a very expansive, very, very vast, broad piece of software. And one of the things that I'm very challenged with now since I hit my head is technology. I used to be a whiz with computers. I'm just not anymore. Computers are super challenging to me. Cell phones, it's all gotten kind of difficult. I mean, I can learn it, but it's a lot harder than it was before. So I thought, oh my gosh, this thing's so massive that it's going to take years to even learn the software, let alone do anything with it. I had a friend of mine that was, doing some free classes, so I was able to get and sit in on a couple of classes, which gave me at least some foundation to work with and at least some foundation upon which to start exploring this software. And even just within a couple of months of having the software over that Thanksgiving weekend, I just thought, okay, I got all weekend. I'm just gonna just open up Ableton. I'm just gonna play with it, see what I can do. One thing that I was able to learn through the classes is how to write a beat. That's not that difficult. Most people give me an hour with somebody and I could teach somebody how to write a beat on Ableton. That's not really that difficult, that part of it. So I'm thinking, okay, I can at least write a beat, and plus Ableton has like a massive catalog of instruments and a massive catalog of sounds, electronic and conventional, instrument sounds, just so many. Um, so I thought, okay, let's explore this. And one thing I've been into since the NDE is binaural beats or binaural tones. And I don't want to dive into what all that is, but if you don't know what it is, look it up. It's pretty cool. And I often use that for meditation. I use that sometimes when I'm writing, sometimes when I'm trying to sleep. So I just thought, you know what, I'm going to write, just if I can just make a cool tone. I'm just going to pick a note. I don't even remember what note I picked right away. I'd have to go look back, open up the software to see what note it was. But I just picked a note, something that resonated in the moment. And I thought, okay, let's just layer a bunch of things on it and see if I can't make something that just sounds kind of cool. I mean, just something random. I had no idea what I was doing. And so I did that. And I'm like, okay, that sounds kind of cool. That's all right. Not bad, not bad. And I thought, you know what? Because I'm a DJ, I've been collecting samples over the course of the years. So I have like, you know, cars driving by. I have, sirens, and I have thunderstorms and waves crashing and all this stuff. So I picked a thunderstorm, one of my, just a thunderstorm sound that I had that I thought would fit with what I just made. I thought, okay, let's layer that over this sound. I'm like, oh, that sounds really cool. Nice, nice. And because I could write a simple beat, I thought, you know what? Why don't I put a little beat on this and see kind of what that does? So I put a beat on it and I'm like, oh, okay, this is interesting. All right, all right. And then from there, I started hearing like little musical riffs in my head, and I thought, wow, I don't have any idea how to write a piece of music, but Ableton has a sort of like grid system where it's like kind of with a keyboard on the one side, but this grid of like notes that you can write that are just through all the octaves. And I thought, okay, maybe I can just pick an instrument. Let's see if I can't find this riff and figure out how to make the actual riff that I'm hearing in my head. So I did that. And I won't go through all of it, but about like five instrument layers later, I mean, I had all these sounds that kept coming into my head, and I was able to keep adding all these sounds to what I had created, to this tone, to the thunderstorm, to the beat. And by the end of the weekend, I played it all back through and realized that I just wrote an entire piece of music. I kind of reordered it a little bit so it made sure it flowed really nicely. So if I'm thinking to myself, if I'm listening to this on streaming, how do I want this to flow? How is it going to sound good to me? And I did that. And I'm looking back and going, I can't believe I just wrote an entire piece of music. I can't believe this. And I literally cried. I couldn't believe that just came out of my damaged brain. And, because I've definitely struggled with a lot of things because things are so different. And especially the part that I can't do or things that I used to be able to do, it's very difficult sometimes, even these years later. But from there, I kept hearing all this music in my head. And since 2018, I've written 51, 52 pieces of music. And then, of course, I had to make sure it sounded good. And because I didn't want to wait around for some producer to hear my music and decide they wanted to work with me so they could mix and master it for me, I mean, eventually I want to work with some producers so I can have another set of ears to listen to the track. I mean, most of the time, even producers that have their own music want to have a second set of ears that can kind of you can bounce off of and make sure it really is sounding the best that it could sound. But not having access to that, I thought, I'm going to do it for myself. And somehow, some way, and I joke sometimes it's just a series of happy accidents because I'm not an engineer and I can't speak in terms of engineering. When you hear an audio engineer talk about mixing and mastering, it all sounds very, very scientific. When I talk about engineering, when I talk about like equalization, compression, and things like that, I have to do it in analogies and metaphors. It makes sense to me, just not in an engineering context. But I've learned how to mix and master on top of writing music because of my ability to visualize and draw from source consciousness to be able to do this. So as a result, I've very miraculously and very much by accident discovered that I could write and produce music, and it's been nonstop ever since. It's like my favorite thing in the whole world to do right now is to write and produce music. So now I have all of this music and I'm just writing more. And even though I can't possibly do this because I don't have the time and the energy, but I could literally, if I could write a new piece of music every single day for the rest of my life and not run out of all the music that's in my head. Pretty miraculous, and I'm still blown away by it. And it excites me to no end. It just takes me to my happy place.
Amazing, Rex. Can you tell people how they can get a hold of you?
Oh, absolutely. I just launched a brand new website, which is gravity.life. Literally, just type in gravity.life. That's also the name of my business. And you can find my music, my book, my store. I'm also a martial arts instructor. My martial arts is on there. I don't obviously fight or do anything that kind of stuff anymore, but I do still do the movements, the forms, the stretching, the core strength. That's all there. Gosh, what am I missing? My presentations. I'm a presenter. That's all there. So if you want to take a look at the website. Plus, you can contact me. I have an email there as well. And otherwise, just write me through the website itself. I'm happy to respond and interact with you. And if there's anything there that you like, then please. This is my life. This is how I'm surviving and hopefully growing and eventually, thriving. And that, I mean, it'd be a great way to help and support it. Buy my book. Buy some items on the store because all the stuff on my store are on the t-shirts and whatnot, the sayings are all my own sayings that come from my book and come from my presentations that I realized over time that people were remembering. So I would do a presentation and see somebody a few months later, they would see me and quote me from my presentation. So I thought, wow, they actually remember that quote. Maybe I should start putting that on t-shirts and such. So I did that. So check that out. And if it's something that you like, buy it. Hopefully it's something that can help you too. And it also helps me out because this really is my life. This is my path. This is my destiny. And as I get older, I'm not getting any younger. This is hopefully how I'm going to, take care of myself and live for the rest of my life. But yeah, gravity.life. Simple as that. Take a look and I hope you enjoy it and I hope you enjoy the journey. The music is all there. Yeah, I do. Just check it out and have some fun with it.